later in this episode.
And he said, "Truly, I do not know you."
Wow.
And Jeff made reference to that. He kind of paused and he said, could any of us imagine 5 more fearful words for us to hear than Christ to say, "I do not know you"?
Well, welcome to today's podcast. I am your host, Austin. I am joined here by co-host Kelly today. Kelly, say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. And today we have Brian Simmons here with us today. Brian is a dear friend of ours, super good friend of Victory Church. We're so happy to have you here today, Brian. Today we're going to share Brian's story of just what God's been doing in his life the past couple of years and what it looks like to live a life kind of just attending church and living that lifestyle, but not being all in and not having that full commitment and pursuing that full commitment. So, Brian, thank you for being here today. We're so happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Absolutely.
Our hope is today that people will be encouraged by this story and continue to take that step and take that leap of faith that so many people do. They take that leap and they say, hey, it's time for me to get serious about this. It's time for me to take my relationship with the Lord to another level. Then it kind of just comes back to them and they start getting back into rhythms of life and they allow just that to overtake back to where they were before. So, Brian, tell us a little bit, what was life like before you had that moment of, hey, I'm ready to go all in with this?
Sure. Yeah, so if I go back even as at a young age, I always went to church.
Yeah.
Even as a child with my parents, grandparents. So I've always been actively involved in church, or at least I guess I would say attending church. But I think the main thing for me was, and maybe for many others, I found myself, especially as I got older, I was attending church, but I wasn't really in the church.
Yeah.
And by that, I'm referring to just being connected to the body of the church and being active within the church, and also, probably more importantly, just more entering into a deeper personal relationship.
Yeah.
With the Lord. It was just I felt like I was checking boxes, but I wasn't really growing in my relationship personally with the Lord, which is obviously most important to us first and foremost. And then we talk about Christ coming back for His church, and I was just reflecting on, am I really part of the church?
Wow.
Right? Attending the church is one thing, but being a part of it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Is another.
Yeah.
So I just I had an instance on a given Sunday. We were attending here at Victory, and that particular Sunday, I remember it so clearly. It was January the 16th of 2022, and Jeff Bender, Pastor Bender, was doing the message that Sunday, and that particular message, I felt, how probably for many of us, we hear a message and you feel like you're being spoken to directly, right? Depending on maybe what you're facing or something you're going through in your life. And that was one of the Sundays that I had that experience where I just felt like that message that the Lord was speaking to me personally, directly, specifically, probably more so than I've ever experienced before. And the message that Jeff had done was titled "On Fire for God." And it was a great message, obviously, for me. And he really was emphasizing the fact that our God is a consuming fire, and he was using that in reference to his desire to be in relationship with us, his passion for us, and that he burns to be in relationship with us. And as part of Jeff's message, he made reference to Matthew 25, the parable of the 10 virgins. And in that parable, there were 5 wise virgins and 5 foolish, right? And they were waiting for the bridegroom to come. And while he was delayed, they fell asleep. And then when they realized that he was coming, they all awoke and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish virgins did not have oil for their lamps.
Yeah.
So they had to go out and find oil. And while they were out searching for the oil, he came and they went into the banquet and closed the door. and the foolish virgins came back and knocked on the door and said, Lord, Lord, let us in. And he said, truly, I do not know you.
Wow.
And Jeff made reference to that. He kind of paused and he said, could any of us imagine 5 more fearful words for us to hear than Christ to say, I do not know you? And that just really resonated with me because none of us know the hour, the day, the time.
Yeah.
But I was just self-reflecting, saying, as I'm sitting here on that particular Sunday, what would I hear?
Yep.
Right?
Oof.
And and again, he tied it back to the being on fire for God.
Yeah.
How the foolish virgins were not prepared.
Yep.
They didn't have oil, and they didn't have their fire.
Yeah.
And he was encouraging us to be on fire for the Lord in our lives, in our personal relationships with Him, much like He desires, and to be on fire for Him like He is for us. And that is kind of a backdrop to the moment for me where I was just feeling called to step further into deeper personal relationship with the Lord. Most importantly, of course, and then secondly, just to be more involved in the church.
Yeah.
And whatever that looked like for me at the time, and I wasn't sure what that looked like. But I used it as an opportunity, and I committed to the Lord that I was going to make Him the center. I was going to make Him my priority. I was going to go all in and be on fire, as Jeff would say, from the message for Him in all aspects of my life, not only spiritually, but just in marriage, my family, children, work, all of those things. And so that's what I did. From that point forward, I made that commitment. And it's a process.
Yeah.
Of course, every day is a process for all of us to do that. But I made that a priority.
Yeah.
And to this day, I'm still doing that and still going through the process.
Yeah.
My testimony would just be to encourage others who maybe are at that same spot, or those that are maybe listening today that are at that same spot. Where you're attending church, but you're not really in the church, and maybe you're not in as deep of a personal relationship with the Lord as you could be, to take that challenge and to do just that.
That's so good. And at that point, so January 2022, would you have said before you heard that message, would you have articulated that of, I'm just going kind of to church, but not part of the church? Did you recognize that, or was it that message that really convicted you? The Holy Spirit convicted you of that?
Yeah, I would say it's the latter. Because again, I was attending regularly, but until I heard that message, I just felt, as you said, convicted to just self-reflect and to say, am I truly though? Yeah. Am I really all in?
That's so good. Yeah, because so many times we're doing that, because I've done that in my life, and I remember I'm thinking back to a very specific message. And it's so cool how the Lord does that. Like, you're like, okay, this message was for me. Yeah. I have in a book, I use it as a bookmark now. And PC did a message, and it was, what are you going to do with your life? And it was rulers. It was little rulers that he gave out. And he was like, okay, rip to your age. So I ripped. And then I was 21 at the time. And then it was your life expectancy, like how long do you think you're going to live? What's the average in your family? Oh, wow. And I ripped to about like 85, I think I ripped. So now I have this piece of paper from 21 to 85. And he said, now look at that. What are you going to do with your life? And I was like, oh, wow, what am I doing with my life? Yeah. And that was one that just hit me so hard. And that was a big, I can think back to just like that many different messages and times where I'm like, wow, this is it. Like the Bible and just the word comes so alive to you in those moments. And so many people have those moments, but I want to ask Brian, like they have that moment of like, wow, I have this revelation, I have this conviction, but then they go right back the next day and they go right back to what they were doing. So what are some of the steps, what are some of those steps that you had taken when you were like, Lord, I feel like you're speaking to me right now. I know you're speaking to me. Now how do I like consecrate this, if that's the word? Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, I just spent more time intentionally in prayer.
and in conversation with the Lord, just on what He would have for me, and what else I could do to grow in my personal relationship with Him. Spending more time in the Word, just studying the Word, and also spending time just listening to whatever it is that He would have for me in whatever situation maybe I was in. And again, whether it was work, whether it was marriage, whether it was with family, whatever it might be.
That's so good.
So I think just being intentional and just in prayer, spending time in the Word, and then also just listening.
Yeah.
And all of that to help me, again, first and foremost with my personal relationship with Him, but then also just getting more involved in the church, right? Those that are listening that attend Victory know that Victory is very much a church of next steps. And for me, it was to do just that. And the very first thing that I did was joined a group.
Yeah.
And the very first group that I joined was actually a freedom group, which those of you that have gone through freedom, you know how life-changing those groups can be and how deep they can be. So as far as joining a group, I went right into a freedom group. And obviously, like many others, that was so impactful to me in my life. And I've grown and learned so much through the freedom group that I ended up then leading a freedom group after that. And then also just going through Growth Track and just trying to discover, okay, well, what is my purpose and how can I use that to make a difference, right? And then by going through Growth Track, I got on a serve team. I actually am part of the Growth Track team and leading others to help them find their next step or their purpose and to take their next step and encouraging them to do that.
Yeah.
And then just being a part of groups, leading groups on a serve team, serving, being involved in the church. And the benefits to me have been immeasurable as far as connections that I've made, the people that I've met, the brothers and sisters in Christ that I have now in my life that I didn't have before, and the staff here at the church come alongside of me during that time and to this day, supporting, encouraging, resourcing, mentoring, and being examples themselves for me, again, has been so impactful. So those are just like some of the things that I've done and I'm currently still doing. And I get excited about that opportunity because I know where I was before I felt convicted, so compared to where I am now, and how greatly I've benefited from that. And again, the relationships and the people that I've made and the connections. And then again, back to just most importantly, my own personal growth and development and deeper relationship with the Lord. But it makes me excited to have the opportunity to help other people to do that exact same thing because I know how much I've been blessed by it and how much of a difference it's made in my life. And I would love to help somebody have that same experience and to come alongside them to experience the same thing that I've experienced.
That's incredible. And I'm thinking back even knowing you, Brian, like there's people that I've seen and had the privilege of seeing you walk with them through those processes and seeing people, how many lives you've made a difference in.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah. So like you're such a blessing to so many people. Like, thank you for what you do, Brian. And one thing in all of that, like if you come to Victory Church, like we love you and like we're blessed. Hopefully I get to know you. But if you don't come to Victory Church or if you don't have a home church, like find a church that's like that. Find a church that's willing to invest and spend that time with you and just grow you. And as we grow the church together, like be in a community, be in groups, find a church that's like that. And if you have a church like that, that's incredible. Take advantage of everything they're willing to offer to you because it's so good when you find that, when you can find those next steps to take, when you can find community, when you can find freedom together. So I want to encourage our listeners in that, like what you're hearing in Brian's testimony is so incredible that, again, so many of us have felt that in our life at some point of, I want to do something. And usually it's right in front of you and you're just missing it. Like there's those opportunities to grow and we just miss them. And now you are dedicating your time to making sure people don't miss that. And people get to experience those opportunities and just aren't blinded by their own, I don't know, churchiness sometimes. Like, I keep coming, I'm good, I keep coming, just like you would say you were at. And then once you experienced it, you were like, man, like I want everybody else to experience this. That's incredible, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to like thank you for your obedience and your like your willingness to take that step out, because kind of what I'm hearing is like you really, it started as an individual journey. It was
Right.
you and the Lord, but
Right.
isn't God so good? Like the way He works, because it did branch out and it's now impacting the community. And like I said, I'm one of those people because I had just joined Victory, and you and your wife had a group, and that was the first group I had ever joined. I was terrified.
Yeah.
I walked in. You guys were so nice. You were the first person to come up. You explained everything, and so like I felt comfortable, but I was in that season of my life, and I know you know this because I had shared it with the group, but like my brother passed away. My aunt, who was like one of my close, she's like my hero, she passed away. Had a heartbreaking situation. It was like everything that could go wrong in that season went wrong.
Right.
And you guys just surrounded me, and we were working our way through Psalms,
Yes.
you know, and some of them were on grief. And it was like, you know, because of your obedience,
Yeah.
God ministered to someone like me.
Sure.
And I'm just curious, like when you started this journey, did you have any idea like the kind of community you'd find and the impact that that would have on others just because you said yes?
No, at first I didn't. And to look back on it, I appreciate your kind words and your comments. And again, all the glory is to God. It's not about me. I'm
Amen.
just glad to be a resource to help others. I know that there are others, I think, that are in that same position or the same spot maybe where I was. And I say that simply because there are times like during Growth Track, where we're encouraging others to take a next step and to get connected to the life of the church. And I comment and I share a little bit through that process with how I was attending, but I wasn't all in. Or I would say, well, I'm going to go all in next month. Or well, maybe next month.
Yep.
And that becomes 6 months, and that becomes a year.
Yep.
And that was me too. But when I'm sharing that testimony, I notice many people's heads in the room nodding up and down, like, yeah, I can relate. Like, that's me too. So again, I know that there are others, I think, that maybe just need that encouragement to take that next step. Whether it's a group, whether it's outreach, whether it's going through Growth Track, whether it's getting on a serve team, and then again, most importantly, just growing deeper in their own personal relationship with the Lord. And if there's anything that I could do to help them do that, I would love that opportunity to come alongside of them to do just that.
I'm curious if you felt like in the moment, like when you first had your own first group to lead, do you feel like you were like, yeah, I got this, I'm equipped? Or was it really a leap of faith?
Yeah, it was very much a leap of faith for me. Again, I just, all the glory to God, because I just prayed on it, asked for encouragement, discernment, wisdom, guidance. And as, again, most of our listeners know, he'll show up, right?
Yep.
And just based on your testimony, Kelly, sharing how you've benefited, just proves that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have special skills per se, special training per se, other than the great resourcing we get from the staff to prepare us as group leaders. But again, it was just all him. Yeah.
Amen.
That's so good. So what would you say to somebody who's at that point, but they're hesitant? They're like, I don't really know. I don't feel equipped. Like you're saying, you kind of have those feelings of I'm nothing special. What would you say to that person who's on that fence?
Yeah, I would say I understand where they're coming from. But again, I would encourage them to just let my testimony sink in for them and just know that like I'm proof that you can have that same relationship. You can grow in your personal relationship with the Lord. You can get connected to the church. You can make a difference in your life, as we say here, right? And make the difference in the lives of others around you. And that if you just take the first step, God will do the rest, right? It says James 4:8, draw closer to God and he'll draw closer to you. So that would be my encouragement. You got to take the step and he'll meet you there and everything will work out.
That's so good. That is so good. Brian, what an encouragement you are and your family. Your family is so incredible. All of them. So what are some of the things, so you've led groups and stuff. So what are some ways that you're seeing this kind of multiply and grow?
Yeah, great question. So we just finished up our fall semester and spring semester of groups is starting up. And we've had some attendees that have attended multiple semesters of groups
Yeah.
that I've led or led with my wife, been a part of, and we've encouraged them now for the spring semester. They were asking us, are you going to have a group again? What is your group going to be? We want to make sure we sign up. We want to be a part of it. And we paused and said, that's great. We love fellowship with you, but how about you lead a group? And we encourage them to lead a group. And now they're leading a group this semester for the spring starting next week.
That's so good.
And we signed up as attendees now for their group to give them an opportunity to lead and to lead others instead of us, to just encourage them. And they've embraced it. They're doing it. They're excited about it. And we're looking forward to being a part of it.
Well, hopefully in 2 years, we'll have them on the podcast then, and they can tell us that story.
That's right.
And then we'll have you back then. So.
That's right.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you, Brian, for being here today.
Yes, thank you.
Again, we hope our listeners feel encouraged today because so many of us have been in that season or may even be in that season of, I kind of want to do this, but I'm not sure what this looks like.
Right.
And just your testimony of just the faithfulness of God and just how you've just continued to grow and just the impact and ripple that's having on others. So thank you for all that you do, Brian, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Kelly, for being here as well, co-hosting.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you, listeners, for listening. We hope you join us again next week for another new podcast. Go make a difference with your life, and we'll hopefully have you on again next week to hear us. Be blessed. Thank you for joining us on this episode of This Is My Story. Hearing these incredible accounts of God's work in our lives reminds us of the enduring power of faith. If you've been moved by these stories, don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform and on YouTube. And don't forget to share the inspiration with others who might need it. This Is My Story is recorded at Victory Church in the heart of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. You can learn more about This Is My Story and Victory Church in the show notes. Thank you for listening and be blessed.